President signed just the other day on the 4th of July, there's some major changes within that to programs like Medicaid, the SNAP program, otherwise known as food stamps or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the EBT program, right? Or that's actually the card that benefits are deposited onto, but it's all interchangeable. A lot of people call it all kinds of different names. But point being is that over the last few days here, and realistically over the last couple of weeks, I've had a couple of videos out talking about this. And since it was signed into law, this is the done deal now, right? This is not like speculation. It's not like, oh, it's this proposal thing. It's nothing like that anymore. This is the done deal. This is the new law. This is finalized. That's it, right? On Friday, so I had that live stream out. It was about a 25, 26, 27-minute live stream. We talked about a lot of details in that. And in that live stream, I also said, if you need me to come back and elaborate on anything within that live stream further, I can certainly do that. Well, I've had a number of people reaching out saying, hey, can you clarify what all this means for SNAP? What does it mean for Medicaid? Things like that. So I had a dedicated Medicaid video out yesterday. And just wanted to come back here in this live stream and make a dedicated SNAP live stream as well. And again, when I say SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food stamps, EBT, whatever you want to call it, it's all referring to the same thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to focus specifically on SNAP here. I may allude to Medicaid a couple times throughout this video just because a lot of the provisions that are changing SNAP are also consistent with the Medicaid program as well. And there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of people out there that are enrolled in SNAP that are also enrolled in Medicaid, vice versa, right? Not everybody, but there is certainly a lot of overlap between the two programs. Just by the way, really quick here, I think this is super interesting. There's 72 million people enrolled in Medicaid, and there's about 42 million people enrolled in SNAP benefits, right? So collectively, you would think, oh, wow, that's like 114 million people, right? Well, you would think so, but it's actually not that many people because there's a ton of overlap between the two, okay? All right, anyway, point being is that I just want to break down and talk through the details of all these different aspects, everything that we know about this as far as the changes to SNAP, what this means for the 42 plus million beneficiaries, when all this goes into effect, who needs to comply, what are the new changes, how will it impact your monthly benefit, and anything else I can think of for you here in this live stream. Okay, so again, dedicated on SNAP, food stamps, EBT. And if I don't answer your questions here in this one, let me know. Seriously, leave a comment down below. Be very specific what you want a video about, or just very specific about what your question is, and I can certainly come back in a dedicated one and answer that for you. All right, anyway. Okay, talking about SNAP. Now, this is the new law, okay? Now, one thing I want to point out really fast is this is a big question out there. Does this happen today? Did it start on Friday? When does this go into effect? The answer is technically yes. Signed into law, goes into effect pretty much immediately, right? But here is the deal about this. Even though this is the law, goes into effect immediately, there's a grace period of about a year and a half. Okay, that's kind of the big thing here, is that the grace period is between now and the end of 2026 is the implementation time frame. That's why it's kind of interesting about this. Now, I'm also going to throw this out there. Remember the details about the SNAP program. This is what makes it a little bit unique, just like the Medicaid program as well. Medicaid and SNAP are federally funded, but state administered. Okay, point being is what I mean by that is the federal government basically gives states pretty much all the money. It depends on what you're talking about. If it's Medicaid, they give the majority of the money to states. States do pay a little bit of that. When it comes down to SNAP benefits, the federal government basically pays for all of SNAP benefits, with the exception of a little bit of the administration burden is on the states. The point being is that the federal government basically pays everything for these programs, and then the states just send it out to the respective residents within the states that are eligible for these programs. Does that make sense? Why that's such a big deal is the following, which is each state is going to implement this on a different time frame. Okay, that's why this is kind of hard to come back and be like, well, technically the law says yes, goes into effect immediately, but they have this grace period of implementation. Some states will work diligently to get this implemented soon, very quickly, and other states will sit there and drag their feet and take forever to get this implemented, which realistically would probably be a good thing, right? So if you're in a state that's slow, that probably is going to be a better thing than the state that works fast to implement it right away. Does that kind of make sense, right? So the timeline on implementation is going to be literally different across the entire board, but it all must be done by the end of 2026. Does that make sense? So like a year and a half ish, give or take a couple of days here, by the time that all of this needs to be implemented. Okay, just want to throw that out there really quickly because that was a common question that came up the other day off that live stream, and thought, I just want to hit that right away from the start here. Okay, implementation will be different. I'll keep you posted as we get information out of the states. I'll do my best to keep you posted on that. It might be kind of hard, honestly, to follow the timelines because each state is going to be different, but I'll do my best on that going forward, okay? All right, anyway, now let's talk about the juicy stuff here. What is within the big reconciliation bill, the big beautiful bill, the president's agenda, whatever you want to call it, this legislation to change SNAP? Okay, most notably is the one provision that I've talked about multiple times over the last, realistically, like 6 months. I've mentioned it a few times as we've seen more proposals coming out, but now this is the law. It's not a proposal anymore. This is the law, the new law. Okay, what it is. The work requirements, this is the deal. The work requirements include between the ages of 18 and through 64. So 18 to 64, that's the age range. Remember, the old law, as of literally just a few days ago, was 18 to 54. So it went up by 10 years. They raised it by 10 years. Okay, that's the new age range to fulfill the work requirements to receive SNAP. But is it everybody? No, it's not everybody. Let me take a couple minutes here and just really kind of emphasize this, because this is another question that I've received multiple times, which is, hey, this is my situation. Do I need to fulfill this? So let me just kind of really hammer this home here and just really spend some time just to really elaborate on this, okay? Okay, would everybody need to fulfill the work requirements when it comes down to SNAP if you are between the ages of 18 and 64? The simple answer is no, okay? It's only focused on, you know what I'm about to say, right? The acronym that I've said so many times, ABAWD, able-bodied adults without dependents, okay? That's the focus. Now, I'm going to say this really fast here, which is somebody with a disability, somebody that has a disability between the ages of 18 and 64. If they have a disability, do they need to fulfill this? And again, why I wanted to say this again, I've said this many times, but I just want to say this again because I've had this question many times over the last few days here. The questions come in, I'm 54, I'm 52, I'm 46, whatever. The age doesn't really matter. Somewhere between the ages of 18 and 64. You have a disability, okay? If you have a disability and you're between that age range, do you need to fulfill the work requirement? Answer, no. No, you do not, okay? You do not. Why? Somebody that has a disability is not considered able-bodied, okay? I know that sounds like super harsh, and I know that sounds like super weird. That's the reality, though, okay? So it might be like, oh, man, that's like really insulting, but I feel like embrace it, seriously, right? For once, it's like nice to be like, hey, my disability is actually kind of nice for once, right? Hey, I'm right there with you, too. If you're new here, if you don't know this about me, I'm blind. I mean, I can see like very bright lights. That's about it. I have a light right behind the camera that I kind of try to stare at, but it like fries my eyes, and I think I'm looking at it most of the time. That's how I kind of know where the camera is. Other than that, I can't see crap. I literally can't see anything, okay? My point is I'm in the same situation. In this case, I do not need to fulfill the work requirement. Why? I'm between the I'm between the ages of 18 and 64. That is my reality. I am between that age range, okay? I'm not 17 and I'm not 65, so therefore I am between the age range. However, I have a disability. I do not need to fulfill the work requirement. There's a lot of other people that have disabilities as well that do not need to fulfill it because of a disability. And that's, honestly, I feel like there's not many times out there where you're like, awesome, my disability is paying off these days. It is not very often when you get to say that, but in this type of situation, it's like, okay, good. I'm in the clear here this one time. Okay. That's what that is. And again, I just wanted to give you a quick example about that so you can kind of understand like a real life, like real practical example here as far as what that is. Okay. Now there's some other exemptions as well. Pregnant women, okay, between the age ranges there, do not need to fulfill the work requirement. That's they're exempt from that as well. Now, somebody who is able-bodied without a dependent between that age range, 18 to 64, and if they do not fulfill the work requirement, here's what happens. They can only get SNAP benefits, otherwise known as food stamps, for 3 months out of every 3-year period of time. That's it. So that's like not very much, right? 3 months out of every 3-year period of time is all the more of the SNAP benefit that they can be eligible for if they are not fulfilling the work requirement. So that's what that is. Now, what is the work requirement? Work requirement, the same for SNAP as it is for Medicaid. 20 hours per week or 80 hours per month. Again, 20 hours per week, 80 hours per month is what that comes down to, okay? Now, what qualifies? Obviously working, okay, that's a pretty obvious one, right? Working. Now, what does working entail? Really good question. Basically anything providing service, right? So like working, it's a very broad explanation of working, but also volunteering that works as well. You could volunteer and that totally fine. That fulfills. Okay. Basically what they're trying to do is get people to serve the community in some way, shape, or form. That's it. It could be through education training, skill training, volunteering, or just straight up working 20 hours a week. That's what that is. Okay. So yeah, make sure, by the way, if you are in this category, make sure that you are filling out the proper paperwork so that this is accounted for. There's some different reports that I've seen out there I've been reading about that are suggesting there's a handful of people, as in like a few million people, that may lose their benefit just because of inaccurate paperwork or paperwork that hasn't been filed, things like that. What I would say is this: best practices going forward. If you are in the age range of the 18 to 64 and you are able-bodied and you do not have a qualifying dependent that makes you exempt, what I would say, call your local office, connect with your local office and say, hey, like, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm compliant? What do I need to do to make sure that I am, properly recorded, make sure that I am properly fulfilling the hours required or whatever, and make sure that I'm getting my benefit. Okay. It doesn't hurt to make that phone call. Not at all. I would certainly do that, because what would be more annoying is all of a sudden 1 month, if you don't get your SNAP benefit, and then you think, what happened? You call your local office and they're like, oh, we don't have you registered as working, fulfilling the work requirement, and we've kicked you off the program. That'd be a bad day, right? So all I'm saying is just try to like cross that bridge before you even get there. Have a conversation with your local office and just tell them, just like, hey, just want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence here. Want to make sure that I'm covered and that all is good, right? Nothing wrong with that, having that conversation. They'd probably appreciate the call too, and just making sure that you're kind of on your game and that you're actually, doing what you can to be compliant with the new rules, right? So I don't know. That's just what I would say about that, because, learning that you've lost your benefit, unsuspectingly, and then all of a sudden, whoa, where's my benefit? And then realizing, whoops, didn't get my benefit because I got kicked off, or I lost the program, or I lost the benefit, or whatever. It'd be a bad situation, right? Okay, so that's that. Okay, I think that hammers that point home. 1864 is the new age range, 20 hours per week, 80 hours per month, only focused on able-bodied adults without dependents. Now, new definition for a dependent, right? The old definition for a dependent was anybody under the age of 18. 17 and under was the definition of a dependent. That's no longer the definition of a dependent. Dependent does not, that's not a dependent anymore, according to their rules, okay? I think we all recognize a 17-year-old is still very much a dependent, right? That's how it goes. I mean, that's just, yeah, anyway, you get it. We don't need to elaborate on that. All right, anyway, the new rule with the SNAP qualifications of a dependent is 13 and under is considered a dependent, 14 and above is no longer considered a dependent, okay? So if somebody, let me just give you a quick example. Let's just say that, again, this is just a real off-the-cuff example here, just random example. Okay, let's just say that somebody is 42. 42, they have a 14-year-old kid, okay? They're 42, 14-year-old kid, and no disability, okay? And they're not pregnant, okay? That's the situation. And this person is able-bodied. Previously, with the old rule, because that kid, the child, I'm calling it a child. It's not really a child. I mean, it's 14. It's like a teenager, right? Some punk teenager. Right? Just thinking of my own self when I was a kid, or that age. But anyway, previously they would have been exempt from the work requirement, be simply based on the age of their teenage kid, right? But now with the new rule, that teenage 14-year-old is no longer an exemption. So that 42-year-old parent who may not be fulfilling a work requirement and has a 14-year-old who was exempt previously is no longer exempt because they're able-bodied, their dependent is no longer giving them exemption, therefore they fall into the category now. Does that make sense? Right? So yes, there you go. That's kind of an interesting one. Now here's another one as well. I just want to throw this out there. I didn't talk about this the other day, but I'm going to throw it out there really fast. I don't know if a lot of people realize this. I know a lot of you here in the community know like every in and out of all the benefits that are out there, which is honestly really, really nice. But here's one other thing as well. Do you realize that SNAP benefits also get an annual COLA? I'm not talking about the Social Security COLA. I'm talking about the SNAP COLA. SNAP benefits, just like Social Security and all the benefits administered by Social Security, also get a COLA raise every year. I know you might think, really? Does it really? It really does. But here's the problem. Well, I shouldn't say a problem. Here's the situation. That COLA announcement literally should be coming out any day now. Like, I'd say in the next, like, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, maybe a month. It kind of oscillates a little bit. Sometimes it's released like right around like now, and sometimes it's released in like early August. So my point being is like any day now, this COLA announcement for SNAP benefits, again, not to be mistaken with Social Security, should be announced. But point being is that one of the rules that they also encompassed within this legislation here, again, the big beautiful bill, which is passed and signed into law, it is law now. One of the provisions within there basically caps how much they can raise SNAP benefits based on real inflation. Okay, let me give you just a really fast example here. Remember back in, I think it was 2021. Pretty sure it's 2021. Yeah, for sure it was 2021. Okay, in 2021, they raised SNAP benefits as, remember the situation that was going on at the time? Obviously, we all know what was happening, but because of that, they raised SNAP benefits one time by about 30%. It was just under 30%. It was like 29 point something odd percent. It was like, just under 30%. But point being is that that was a one-time off the cuff, roughly 30% raise that they gave to SNAP. And then lawmakers were like, whoa, that was like illegal. You can't do that, right? So one of the things that they added here is a provision, basically a clause into the SNAP program that says you can't do that. You cannot raise SNAP benefits above and beyond real inflation, which 30% back then, even though feels like, oh yeah, that was probably about real inflation, which I mean, realistically, it's not too far off from some of the different products that were out there at the grocery store. It's really honestly not that far off from how much some food items were actually increasing at the time, especially meat products were like going through the roof at that time. Obviously, inflation on those items has come down quite a bit. But anyway, long story short is that they added a clause within this new legislation here that basically states you can't raise SNAP benefits above and beyond real inflation. So that's basically what they do every year anyway. They look at prices or the food inflation, and then they adjust it, based on the thrifty food plan, things like that. And they look through the details, right? So they basically take a basket of products, a basket of foods. They look at the inflation across these, and then they adjust SNAP benefits accordingly. Last year, it was pathetic. It was like, what was it? 0.2 to 0.3%. If you watch the videos here on the channel like a year ago around this time, I was like, it's just zero. It's way easier to say zero than to be like, it's 0.3% or whatever it was at the time. It was pathetic. It wasn't even 0.3%. It was like 0.03% or whatever it was. It was literally zero. Okay. Anyway, at the time I was like, let's not even talk about what it is. Let's just say zero, because that's literally what it comes down to. It translated into like a $1 raise for a household of one. Went from $2.91 to $2.92. It was literally a $1 raise. So, wow, that's pathetic. But anyway, we'll be getting that COLA raise for SNAP benefits here like any day. Okay, that was not within the legislation there. All I'm saying is that this is something else that will be coming out any day now. The new COLA will be announced for that. And again, just want to throw that out there really fast. The COLA for SNAP, not to be mistaken with Social Security. The Social Security COLA is not released until mid-October. So we've got, what is that? 3 months to go until the Social Security COLA is announced. Okay. All right. Anyway, so these are the changes for the SNAP program. Okay. Now, according to what they're saying here is that there could be roughly about 3 million people. Again, depends on the reports you look at, maybe 3-ish million people that could potentially sacrifice benefits between now and the next 10 years that could potentially essentially lose benefits. Okay. And again, that's over a 10-year period of time. Let's just see, there's going to be a long time of implementation here. Even though the law states it's all enacted immediately, it's going to take a while for these states to actually implement and bring in these new rules. Okay. Let me throw this out there really fast as well. I said something very similar to this the other day, but I'm going to say it again really fast. This is the interesting part about federal laws for state administered programs, right? So I've said this before over the last several years, which is anything that is federal is all encompassing. All the states, everything is all encompassing when it's federal, right? So all the states are included. Obviously, anything within a respective state is just within the confines, within the borders of that respective state. But in this type of situation, Medicaid and SNAP benefits, the new federal rules that are handed down from the federal government basically go into the states as well. And the federal government basically just says to the states, you have X amount of time to implement these new rules that we've given you on the federal level. And then the states say, okay, sure, master, we will do as you say, we will comply immediately, and we will do whatever it is to make sure that you're happy, right? So the states will do whatever they can, and they will implement these new rules for the SNAP program to be compliant with the new federal ruling or the federal law that was handed down from the federal lawmakers. Does that make sense? Right? So the states that administer the SNAP program will implement these, but it's going to take a little while until they can, until they can actually come up with and be compliant with the rules from the master, the federal government. Does that make sense? Right? Now, one more thing I want to throw out really fast as well. This was also in there, and this is a little bit of a change, which will be interesting to watch play out. And again, this one also will be implemented between now and the end of 2026, which is the sharing of SNAP benefit expenditures by states that have overpayment error rates above 6%. You probably heard me talk about this a few times over the last couple weeks here since they originally introduced this, but here's what it comes down to. Starting by the way, I think I said by the end of 2026. I hope I said that. This all has to be implemented by the end of 2026. So basically implemented as of 2027, if that makes sense. Okay, so the last day of 2026, this has to be implemented. So starting 2027, any state that has an error rate, a payment error rate of over 6%, or what I should say is between 6 and 8%, will be on the hook for paying 5% of SNAP expenditures, as in toward the benefit, not administrative costs, 5% of the benefit expenditures. Any state that has an error payment rate between the percentages of 8% and 10% will be on the hook for 10% of the SNAP expenditures. And any state that has an error rate over 10% will be on the hook for 15% of SNAP expenditures. Okay. So the point being is that the federal government is basically just saying, hey, get your error payment rate down. That's all they're trying to say. They're literally trying to tell the states, you either bring your error payment rate down or we will penalize you, because states are broke. They have no money, and they will basically have to cut benefits. So that'd be really bad if they had to do that. So that's basically just the federal government again saying, you comply or we're going to punish you by giving you a fine, essentially what it comes down to. Okay. Does that make sense? That's technically going to be, that goes into effect immediately, but states need to implement that by no later than, what I should say is it's going to be implemented no later than the end of 2026. Does that make sense? So like 2027 is when that'll go into effect, and when we could see benefits potentially impacted because of the states basically burden, if I can say that. For their cut to it. Okay, does that make sense? Right. Quick side note. Over the last, I think it was last fiscal year, maybe it was, the average error payment rate across the country, it was 11.68%. That's really bad. So if that's the average, if every state was in that category, every single state would be on the hook for a 15% cut to SNAP expenditures. That's not good. A lot of states would be very unhappy about that. And here's what else is interesting. These pathetic states out there that have no clue what they're doing are already talking about raising taxes on their citizens and their residents of the respective states to account for this, because they don't have any money and don't know what they're doing. So they have to start raising taxes on their residents to make up for this. The federal government literally gave them a roadmap to what to do. Reduce your error payment rate and you're good. You don't have to have anything. Just bring it under 6% and you're fine. You won't have any burden on them. So interesting, right? All right. Anyway, I think that's about what I have for you. I'm doing this live stream, well, how I always do, but I have it set up a little bit differently. So I need to have my wife help me turn it off. So the luxuries of being blind. Yeah. And having an app or a website, I should say, the way that I'm running this right now, that's not accessible for blind people. So I have to have my wife come and help me turn this off. So we can sit here and chat for a minute. But anyway, these are the new rules. Okay. So one thing I just want to leave you with this as well is that please don't worry about this right now. I know it sounds big and scary. I know it sounds like, oh my, they're going to cut my benefits so massively. It feels that way, but don't worry about it right now. These states are going to drag their feet like crazy to implement this. So don't worry about it yet. I'll keep you posted over the next year and a half, obviously every single day. I've been here for you every day, multiple times a day for the last 5.5 years or so. Obviously, that's not going to change going forward. So anyway, I hope this helps you. I think Corey's here to help me. Please have a nice day. Thanks for joining me. Really appreciate this. Enjoy, and we'll catch you again later. All right. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. See ya.